So our CEO, Brian, at convention in October, he said, "You guys, I have a secret. I've actually I'm cheating on Medi. I am actually getting GLP-1s through Hims." He said, "Okay, so what was that experience like?" 45 minutes intake form on an app, very easy. Took a photo, waist up, clothes on, submits it into the app. Anyone that sees him knows he doesn't need to lose weight. Like you don't have to be a doctor to tell that. He's very fit. 15 minutes later, your info has been approved. You're going to get the product that's being shipped to your house today. Who approved it? What's the product? Where did it come from? He said, now I've been doing it for 3 months. I've renewed twice and I haven't spoken with the provider yet. As an experience from a consumer side, I felt really gross. I was like, I don't know where this product is coming from. I don't know who's approving it. If I had any questions, I don't know who to ask. I don't even know if I'm technically injecting it in the right place, but it showed up at my door. And so that paints a pretty clear picture of where we're fitting in. There's a lot more that goes into weight loss than just take this pill. And so where we fit in as well is our whole solution, what we've done for the past 17 years without GLP-1s has been founded in the basics of healthy lifestyle, right? Fitness and movement and diet and nutrition. And now we've personalized to the individual, and we're going to meet with them on a weekly basis and say, okay, right, you hit your goals this week. Now, what are your goals for next week? And let's talk about it when you come back in. There's a huge difference, and that we're seeing that there's a gap between that convenience and what people are actually needing to be effective or to have a good experience in losing weight. So we're going to provide that accountability and also education. We're going to have someone that they know they can talk to if they've got any questions or have any issues.
Welcome to the Tracer Podcast, your inside track to all things franchising. We provide essential resources for anyone in the franchising world. Let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to the Tracer Franchising Podcast, where we interview great franchisors and hear stories from franchisees. Today, I'm talking to Mary Pang from Medi Weight Loss. It's a very interesting model. It plays in a growing demographic, and they're looking for people who are passionate about the business. But we're going to get into all of that in just a sec. But I'd love to start with Mary. Give us a little bit about a background on you and how you ended up here as with Medi Weight Loss.
Absolutely. Well, thanks first of all for having me on, Josh. I appreciate the time. I've been looking forward to it. So I've been a director of I've been in franchising for 10 years. And so where I actually got my start, I worked at a franchise consulting organization. But I worked on the corporate side for about 5.5 years. And what my job was is I would vet different brands and make sure that they would be a good fit for someone like yourself to then introduce to your candidates. And so I read a lot of FDDs in that time. I talked with a lot of leadership teams. The FDD part of it was wildly boring, as you can imagine, but I learned a lot. I loved talking with founders. I loved talking with the leadership teams, and that's really where I fell in love with franchising, is just, diving into all the different industries. From there, I went over to funding. So I helped people build out funding strategies for about 2 years, which was cool to play a pretty direct role in that. And then the last 2 years, as of November, I've been a director of franchise development with the Repum Group. And I've represented health and wellness brick and mortar brands over that time. So working with Medi Weight Loss has been a breath of fresh air. You can talk about, why, what we look for on the Repum side as far as working with brands and who we choose to work with. But Medi definitely has checked off all of those boxes. So it's been
Very
fun so
cool.
far. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll definitely get into Repum, but let's start with Medi, right? Could you kind of just give us big picture, help us understand what is Medi Weight Loss and what do they do?
Yeah. So Medi is a medically supervised, clinically backed weight loss program. Our lane is weight loss. So when we think about how we're going to help that patient, we're going to walk someone through a 3-phase program. We call it the acute phase, short-term maintenance phase, and wellness phase. What we're going to do during that acute phase is we're meeting with someone weekly, and we're going to walk them through caloric intake, protein intake, water intake. We're going to take their resting metabolic rate. We're going to do a full body composition. We do weekly urinalyses. We do blood panels on a regular basis. So we're going to prescribe what they should eat, how much they should eat, how they should move. And we're going to stay with them on that weekly basis until they hit their goal weight. But then where most people stop there and it's kind of like, Cinderella riding off into the night, like happy ever after you hit your goal weight, we're going to stay with someone after they've hit their goal weight so that they can learn how to sustain it on their own. So the program itself is based in diet and nutrition and movement. We layer in to that IV drips, vitamin shots, the GLP-1s, so we can prescribe that. We could administer that in the clinic. Supplements and food products that are going to support someone in their journey. And then we're going to be able to stay with them through not just getting to their goal weight, but keeping that weight off, and then with them as long as they need after that.
Awesome. I like that you stay with people, right? Because you always hear about these like yo-yos that people go through, right,
Mhm.
for the weight loss. Um,
Yeah.
but let's kind of now what makes them special, right? So like let's say I put on a bunch of weight, right? I can
Mhm.
download an app. I can get a physical trainer. I can
Yeah.
order something from an online pharmacy, right? They got tons of them now, right? Like why are people choosing to go to Medi Weight Loss as opposed to any of these other routes?
Yep. So I'll talk first of all about who our typical patient persona is, and then I'll talk about where we fit into the market. So our typical patient is going to be between the ages of 35 to 55 years old, predominantly women. About 80% of our patients are female. And this is someone who we know statistically, we asked 160,000 of our patients. We asked them, and they said that they have tried at least 3 or more diet programs on their own. So a pretty common line is I've tried everything. You're going to hear that from a lot of patients. I've tried everything. I tried the PCP down the street. I tried Hims. I tried hers. I went to the same girl who does my Botox and she could give me the GLP-1s too. I've done the personal trainer. I've done the classes. I've done everything, right? And nothing has worked. So this is someone who's looking for medical supervision, right? They want to sit across from a provider, from a licensed medical professional who's going to walk them through exactly what they need to do in order to reach their goal weight. This is
Gotcha.
also someone who statistically, they don't need to lose, let's say, 5 pounds before summer, right? This isn't like they're just trying to shave off a couple pounds. This is someone who probably needs to lose, let's say, 20, 30, 40 pounds, maybe more. This might be someone who, let's say it's a mom, right? And she's had a couple kids. She's gotten most of the weight off, like the baby weight off, but maybe she has to lose 15 pounds and she just can't do it, right? She's tried everything, she can't do it. It's for someone who's really looking to sit across from that medical supervised, from that supervisor. So then where we fit into the market fits into that as well. I would say our word is accountability, where everyone else's is convenience. So to dive into that a little bit more, take an app, right? Hims, hers.com, right? It's very accessible today. It feels like someone can get a GLP-1, on every street corner almost. But if you think about that app, I'll actually tell a story around this. So our CEO, Brian, at convention in October, he said, "You guys, I have a secret. I've actually I'm cheating on Medi." We said, "Okay, Brian, tell us more." He said, "I'm actually getting GLP-1s through Hims." We said, "Okay, so what was that experience like?" 45 minutes intake form on an app, very easy. Took a photo, waist up, clothes on, submits it into the app. Anyone that sees him knows he doesn't need to lose weight. Like you don't have to be a doctor to tell that. He's very fit. He's gone through his own weight loss journey, but doesn't need to lose weight today. Submits the information. 15 minutes in, your information has been submitted. You'll hear from someone soon. 15 minutes later, your info has been approved. You're going to get the product that's being shipped to your house today. Who approved it? What's the product? Where did it come from? He said, now I've been doing it for 3 months. I've renewed twice, and I haven't spoken with the provider yet. He was like, as an experience from a consumer side, I felt really gross. I was like, I don't know where this product is coming from. I don't know who's approving it. If I had any questions, I don't know who to ask. I don't even know if I'm technically injecting it in the right place, but it showed up at my door. As the CEO of this company, I feel very good because I know exactly where we fit into the market. And so that paints a pretty clear picture of where we're fitting in, even if someone is sitting across from a PCP, right? Someone, a trusted professional. There's a lot more that goes into weight loss than just take this pill. And so where we fit in as well is our whole solution, what we've done for the past 17 years and 20 years, but 17 years without GLP-1s has been founded in the basics of healthy lifestyle, right? Fitness and movement and diet and nutrition. And now we've personalized to the individual, and we're going to meet with them on a weekly basis and say, okay, right, you hit your goals this week. Now, what are your goals for next week? And let's talk about it when you come back in. There's a huge difference, and that we're seeing that there's a gap between that convenience and what people are actually needing to be effective or to have a good experience in losing weight. So we're going to provide that accountability and also education. They're going to have someone that they know they can talk to if they've got any questions or have any issues. So
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because
yeah,
the issues I found, because like, I had to lose some weight here
yeah,
recently, and you go through these plateaus. You're like, it's not working anymore,
yeah,
or you think you're eating it enough or not enough, and I had to get to be like pull out the app every single meal and measure things to the point my wife was like, "You can eat a meal without measuring things." I'm like, I can't, you know, and that took me almost a year of trying to not
yeah,
be that strict and not losing any weight, right?
right, yeah,
And she had permission to make fun of me at the end of the night if I didn't work out that day, right? Which was, like,
right,
enough motivation for me to go work out, right?
yeah,
I feel like if you don't have someone that you're gonna sit across from every single week and that you can trust, right? Like, Joe, who's, looks like he's doing steroids, who's your personal trainer, if he's like, "Eat more protein, bro," you're like, "What are you talking about?" You know? But if it's a doctor, right, I feel like it's a little bit more, credible, right?
yeah. And you actually hit on something too, like the accountability component of it. Like this is like we know now, right? This is scientific data. There's literature on this that obesity and being overweight is a chronic disease, which means that someone you don't just check it off like goal reached, right? And then you're done. It's something that has to continuously be combated and maintained or it's going to come back, right? That's what a chronic disease is it's not an acute disease like you're done with the flu in 2 weeks and you're done. And so having empathy around that and also giving people the knowledge of that there's a reason why in your body is going to perform different than the next person down the street and we're going to get to the bottom of it. There's a level of education that's just not happening. And so that's empowering for people too, right? So if they're like, okay, the goal, the number on the scale didn't change, but when I look at my full body composition on the Tanita scale, I see that actually I gained 3 pounds of muscle and I lost three pounds of water weight. Okay, so actually that's a bonus, right? But just giving people the knowledge around that. And then the other component of it is when the team is empathetic, which is one of our, I don't know if it's actually our core value, but it's one of our definitely unofficial core values, which they'll hear all the time is there's a level of empathy that has to happen as well, where this isn't just willpower. It's not just, oh, you didn't make your appointment today, right? There's a real mental component of it as well. And we're asking people to change their lifestyles, their life habits. And so if someone doesn't come in to an appointment one week, it can't be, oh, Kathy, whatever, right? It has to be, Kathy, we want you to come back in. Let's talk about it. Let's get you back on track so that you don't miss 2 weeks in a row. And the whole approach is different than what someone is probably hearing on, like you said, the yo-yo diet or the fad diet or just all these other things or just what they're hearing online or with their friends even. And so having, like you said, that trusted advisor who's going to show empathy and also give the tools to really see the impact. That's, I would say, the magic behind Medi Weight Loss and why it's been around for so long. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, 'cause there's just so much psychologically,
yeah,
with this, and it's easy to get derailed, especially like you said, the scale's not moving, you
right,
know, um, and I just have to like convince myself, like, oh yeah, I look bigger, my muscles look bigger, like, 'cause I don't have those tools, and so I just have to like lie to myself to like, 'cause you
yeah,
go 4, 5, 6 weeks not eating, like being hungry,
right,
you want a reason to give up, you know? Um, and so you need that. And I guess that's also what your other stuff does, right? Like the vitamins and whatever. It helps you from being like constantly just hungry, which
yeah,
is what I had to go through.
right.
Am I right in that?
Correct. Yeah, so like our support products are going to help someone in that weight loss journey to have the best experience possible. So when you think about the GLP-1s, right? Our messaging is not the GLP-1 is the weight loss solution. What it will help someone do is curb food noise. is really the term for it, right? So takes away that constant I need to eat, when am I eating next? Like, kind of the voice in the back of the head that people describe. It's supposed to curb that, which it does do. It helps people a lot, right? So they don't feel that need. But then in addition to that, like if someone is in a low caloric diet, if they are in a state of ketosis, which someone needs to be, if they're going to be in a fat burning state, so there's science behind it, right? We're going to help someone stay in that state. But you also want to make sure that if someone's not getting a high level of calories, they're still getting the right amount of nutrients, right? That they're still able to um, have the energy to maintain their day job and manage kids and work and all the, just life is still going on. So that's why we're able to say, okay, let's do a B12 shot on a weekly basis. Let's do an IV drip once a month and make sure you're getting a boost of your nutrients. If there is a food product like supplements, right? Not supplements are not a food product, but let's say supplements, they're taking supplements on a daily basis. We're going to make sure that they're staying, they feel good while they're losing weight or, basically losing a lot of energy sources as well. And then the food products that we have, we're not telling someone you have to eat our waffles to lose weight, right? This is not, you have to eat our food. It's not like, you have
It's
to
not
warm
getting
up
right.
with dinner, right? It's not that, it's more a support product. So it's like, okay, if you're used to eating nachos and you miss your snacks, right, or whatever, then it's like, okay, here's an alternative that you can have without feeling like you're gonna, you know, completely be out of whack with, calories or calorie intake or out of ketosis. So just gives people support as they're making these pretty sometimes major life changes. That's the whole point behind it.
Yeah,
So we've been
yeah, for
successful with
sure.
that.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So I think we have a pretty good idea of what Medi Weight Loss does and why it's special and why people go to it. Um,
Yeah.
but now, like, I'm thinking, okay, as an owner, right? I'm not a doctor, right? Like, what am I doing? So what do owners do on a day to day basis? And like,
Yeah.
what skills are you looking at for them to be good at those things that they're doing?
Ooh, great question. So we have two roadmaps. I'll say what's the most kind of common way or where people start, and then they can evolve into the second way. It's typically what we see. But as an owner operator, where someone's going to be in the clinic themselves, they take the role of the clinic operations manager, is what we call it. Think of that person as primarily a salesperson. Okay. So there is in clinic administrative components of that, right? Scheduling and ordering inventory and taking, like taking intake forms, things like that, right? Sitting at the front desk. But primarily their role is going to be following up with prospective patients. And our funnel, to get someone into the clinic is they're going to schedule a free assessment as a prospective patient. The clinic operations manager sits down and has that 30-minute conversation. And the goal after that, right? And it's a very empathetic conversation, but it is the sales component of this funnel, if you want to call it that. And the goal with that is that someone is then converting to a patient. They're going to schedule an initial consultation as their next step, meaning now they're part of the program. So someone needs to be very comfortable and diligent to follow up with leads, to be able to sit down across from that patient and be very dedicated to having that conversation with them. In
Okay.
addition to that, there's also a community engagement component. So as the owner of the business, they are likely going to be, attending Chamber of Commerce meetings and, sponsoring lunch and learns and fundraisers and kind of being the face of the brand in the community, as well as what we see as a major traffic driver is doctor referrals. So where this is not like, doctors are going to see you as competition. You're actually a supplementary business to them where, the cardiologist and the sleep apnea clinic and the plastic surgeon and the chiropractor, all of those other services, even the PCP, right? The OBGYN, all those clinics, um, we know that our patients are walking into their clinic for probably a symptom of being obese or being overweight, very likely.
Yeah.
And so you are a great number for that doctor to be able to give out to their patient. So you would also, as the franchise owner, be spending your time educating doctors on your services and how you can help their patients as well. So that's their primary role of that clinic operations manager. If someone is going to be an executive owner where they hire that clinic operations manager, that means they're hiring their entire team. Okay. Now, what we look for as far as skill sets for that is we want to see, background or acumen in sales and marketing, having some experience in that, because ultimately they are the front men front man for that. And also in hiring, management, and leading a team, and having confidence in attracting that strong talent, right? Because again, like we talked about, this is a people business. There's an empathetic component of it. You need someone who's going to be able to set the tone in the clinic, set that standard. And if they're not going to be in the clinic themselves, attract the type of individual that's going to drive that environment in their clinic as well.
Okay. Very cool. So let's go through, what does it actually look like to get doctor referrals? Are they just cold walking into these clinics and being like, "Hey doc, I can help your guys," right, in a
Yeah.
way that you can't?
So in the beginning, it might be a little bit like that. It might be a little bit, cold calling. As you start building up your book of business, right, and you've got patients coming in through the door, you also have their EMR system, you've got their records. And so as you start, you can start to get more strategic. So maybe you're like, okay, in the last 6 weeks, I've had 8 patients or 3 patients even, come in from Dr. X's office. It's probably time to give them a call, probably time to drop some flyers off, because I'm seeing they might be already referring, like, let's start building out that relationship. So over time, someone will be able to be more strategic. What the brand will help with as well is they'll help with building out that list. So there is some strategy there as well. They'll provide collateral content. If, let's say, someone wanted to do a leave behind basket, they'll help with building that out. So there are some tactics, there's some strategies that are already in play that have been successful that someone's going to be implement as well. But I wouldn't say, someone should not be shying away from, you literally might be, dropping flyers off at the front desk or trying a few times to get to the doctor. So.
Yeah, and it's like my uncle is an optometrist, and
Okay.
it's like part of the
Yeah.
job is talking to people who are selling things, right?
Right.
Because if I can offer better glasses or contacts lenses or whatever, um, then I'll sit down and talk to them for 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're knocking on people's doors and asking them to, like, sell them solar, right? This is,
Right.
doctors are expecting referral sources to come through their door and talk to them about how they can help their patients more, right?
Right.
Um, I think that's pretty normal. Um, and then let's talk a little bit about, you call them sales, but I don't know, what I heard isn't like what most people think when they talk about sales. It sounds like you just need to be a good listener, because I imagine most of that intake form, people are like, I imagine it gets somewhat emotional, when they start talking about their weight loss journey.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And again, empathy is going to be the theme of this podcast. I think
Yeah.
it's empathy. Like, it's understanding what it took for someone to raise their hand and fill out that form or call your office. This is not, like you said, it's not someone just, casually surfing the webs at like 11 p.m. at night. I've seen this in action. If someone filled out that form on your website, right, or they called you back, or they, expressed interest in some way, it probably took them 2 weeks. They probably thought about it for a really long time, because as soon as they fill out that form, that's actually, they're asking for help. And so understanding that and being diligent to follow up with someone and get them into the clinic in a timely fashion is, again, there's a mental component of that. And also understanding that this is not just some other lead, right? This is a real person who you have a real solution for, is really what that looks like. So it's not a cold call in that way. Like, if you even think about the types of places that we're in, you're not really looking for foot traffic. This is a destination clinic, and a lot of our offices are either in a Class B retail space. So think, the shopping plaza on the across the street from Starbucks, or from Target, right, or Whole Foods or something like that. Shopping plaza across, or now more and more of our clinics are actually in medical parks and professional offices. And if you think about it, it's almost like there's a level of discretion. There's some, so maybe they're coming to see you, maybe they're going to the dental office, maybe they're going to the chiropractor, in the same kind of professional park. And so your marketing playbook, your marketing strategy is to attract patients. So when we talk about, we know the messaging, we know who that individual looks like, we know kind of their, we know that they're a mom, they're a working mom with young kids. We know that they're, and we call her Gloria the Glammy, right? We've got these different personas. We know who we're messaging to drive them and attract them to come into the clinic. Once they raise their hand, that job is call them quickly and book them into the into the clinic. So it's not, to your point, it of course there's sales, right? Every business has sales, but this is, you're calling people who called you first.
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yep. Yep.
So
Okay. So it sounds like, and add on to this, but if I want to be a great fit owner, right? Highly empathetic, probably means I've gone through this myself in some fashion. Um, and I'm willing to like I imagine running doctors, like employing doctors probably has its own nuances, right? So there's probably some personality that you're looking for that can do that. Um, and they're willing to go out in their community, right? So like what else like kind of if you could talk a little bit more about who's the right who's got the right personality traits for this.
absolutely. So the third point you talked about, like the skilled labor, right? Working with doctors, working with nurse practitioners. You nailed it as far as the empathy, getting out in the community, that sales kind of that being willing to be engaged in either the clinic or in the community itself. I'll just, the way I would say it is this is not a painting business. Okay. So what I mean by that is there are some moving parts, right? This is a medical clinic. There's guidelines. You're working with people in a clinical atmosphere. You're working with licensed professionals. And so being comfortable in doing that and attracting talent and working alongside folks, in that atmosphere is needed. And also I would say like this is for someone who really likes thinking on their feet. They like having a couple of things in the fire, right? They like, there's a little bit of variety. There's going to be things that are moving and different from one week to another. Some people thrive in that environment, and for other people they just want to know this is the box and this is where I need to stand, right? And then others will say, okay, here's the box and I get to figure out where's the best place for me to stand. And I would say that's the same also with the franchisor, right? So just kind of zooming out a little bit, this is also a model where from a regulatory perspective there are some franchises where you know, this is the box. You stand here, and on Wednesdays you wear red, right? And like that's the formula, and walk in, and that's it. Some people, that's what they're looking for, and for other people, they want to know here are the parameters, and I get to make it my own. Not that you're bucking the system. That's not what I mean at all. But it's like if you even look on our hours right now, you will see some differentiation because maybe in one market, the customers are telling that franchise owner, we want to see you on Thursdays. So they're open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then others are going to say, typically starting out, we're going to tell someone to be open Tuesdays to Saturdays. But maybe someone finds out Mondays are a great day for me and I'm going to close on Wednesdays, right? So there is some autonomy in how you're going to make that process work for you within your state, within your community, and also alongside the guidelines that your state recommends. So there are just some things that this brand is not able to say, XYZ across the board, but they will absolutely give guidelines and best practices for everything. So I would say that as well is, if someone's listening and they're like, okay, that sounds really scary to me, that's okay. Or if someone's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I would want with a franchise system, then very often that's a good fit. I can also just paint a picture on some franchisees that kind of fit that mold. And there's one I'm thinking of. They're multi-unit owners in Georgia. They've been with us for about 4 years, and they've built three clinics in that time. So just really thrived, right?
Yeah.
Husband and wife duo. She started her own interior design company, and she also was a VP in multiple positions in their past life. He was an executive with Delta, right? So just high powered executives that are used to like a lot of different things. They love this, right? You can tell because they're keeping going with it. And the Pete, I'll mention him. He just mentioned, he said like this is not painting, and if it was, I would be so bored. So he was looking for a bit of a more complex business model.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So, um, oh, the states, right? You mentioned different states have different guidelines. Y'all help with figuring all that out, or yeah,
We do, yeah. So um I mean, there's a lot of different layers to that, but I would say, I mean, we're a 20-year-old brand. Um, we've we've ironed out. I mean, we've got locations in 28 states, right? And so we've ironed out a lot of the, individual state regulations. We have access to healthcare attorneys. We have access to insurance billing companies that can help with that, can help with credentialing. There's a lot of systems and processes that are in place to make sure someone is in compliance. Our medical affairs team is our secret sauce. We have, in 20 years, we've had zero litigation, which means that, our guidelines are proper. We're doing things right. We're being conscientious with both on the franchisee side and on the patient side. And that gives our existing franchisees a lot of confidence. And a lot of that is attributed to our medical affairs team. So what that is think of them as that first line of defense for like the FDA, for just, the regulatory, bodies that we have to abide by. They're making sure that we're lined up and compliant with them. And then they're also keeping an eye on what's coming down the pike, right? This is a highly evolving industry. And so they're always looking at what's next. How do we stay relevant? How do we stay on top of things? How do we do things in a way that's going to better serve our franchisees and our patients? And they do a very good job of that. So they're also looking at approved vendors. They're vetting out vendors. They're doing third-party testing for all of our products. So we don't even take the vendor's word for it. We ask for their documentation and then we go and do our own testing. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that gives people a sense of confidence in not just the program, but the product. And then from a franchisee perspective on the regulatory side of things. So
Very cool. So a lot of support there. That might be a good
Yeah.
segue into, can you outline, I'm a new franchisee, right? Good.
Yeah.
I'm a good fit. I got excited. I signed on. Um, what's the training and then the subsequent support that I will receive as a franchisee?
So I'll start from the time you sign that franchise agreement. On your franchise agreement signing call, you have your director of franchise openings and you have our COO, who will assign you to a franchise consultant, like your Medi Weight Loss business coach, if you will. Your next call is with our director of franchise openings. So we're getting right into site selection. We're going to help you with finding sites, lease negotiation, executing that lease, and then helping oversee that build out and kind of construction process until the doors are open. Alongside that, on the franchise consultant side, we're going to help you find that medical director. We're going to help you find credentialing. As you start recruiting folks, we'll help with role descriptions, things like that. And then about, let's say 6 to 8 weeks before you open, you would come out to system standards training, which is 1 full week of in-person training in Tampa, where the team is headquartered. For you and the rest of your team will be there for that full week. And then during opening week, where you actually start having patients and start seeing people through the clinic, you would have your franchise consultant on site with you, shadowing and coaching as you actually start implementing the system and the processes. From there, you're meeting with that franchise consultant on a regular basis, probably weekly to start with. And then as you get the hang of things, that can taper off as needed. We also do monthly town halls where, different departments will refresh or keep people updated on new things coming down the line, new resources to take advantage of, pilot programs, new products being rolled out. We do an annual convention every year. We just had ours in October. They had 250 attendees there. It was the biggest they've ever had, but that's for the owners, their operators, and their providers. So that's like, they're getting all the newest information. They're sharing best practices. And then on top of that, you also have access to the entire system. So this is a very transparent system where everyone, it's kept up in real time. Every day, the numbers are updated. So you can see exactly where someone is. We're not giving numbers, but like, percentages, clinic by clinic. So you can see, okay, this person over here is crushing it with new patient acquisition. I'm going to give them a call. Or this person over here is just, their retention rate is so strong. I'm going to call them up and ask them what they're doing. We've also had other franchisees, like newer franchisees, go and visit older franchisees clinics and shadow each other so that they're able to pick up best practices. So there is tons of support from pretty much every angle that someone could really be looking for on the operational side. On the marketing side, we kind of talked through that as well. So there's a lot of support behind this brand for existing franchisees.
Very cool. And I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like the franchisees really help each other.
Yes.
I think that's a big deal, right? I really like when franchises have that
It,
culture set up.
not even a big deal. I think like when you think about franchising, yes, there's a roadmap. Yes, there's a process. There's lots of things that that people kind of check off. I think what's actually underrated is that access to the franchisees. Like, in what other system is there, you know, someone maybe even in your backyard is not considering you competition, but are willing to share their best practices of what helped make them be successful, or that you feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. What did you do?" That is, I think that's one of the, and that starts well before someone is a franchisee. Like, when people are in validation, I have someone that are coming to Discovery Day in January. They've gone and visited already. They're not even franchisees yet. They've visited 2 separate clinics.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so someone's taking the time to do that. And that shares a lot about the brand, that people are that collaborative and that open even before someone is a franchisee. And says a lot about those franchisee candidates as well, right? That they're taking the time to do that. But I would say it starts from before someone is a franchisee. And then there are things that the brand has done to really foster that even further once someone is actually in the trenches, which is so important.
Very cool. Okay. And then let's talk timeline, right? Because you said you're not in class A real estate. You're not waiting for that perfect, spot to open up. So,
Yes.
I mean, how quick can you get this thing open?
Mhm. I'm going to use conservative numbers and I'll talk about what we're doing to work on that. I would say for anyone coming into this, I would manage expectations 9 to 12 months. The
Okay.
reason for that is your site selection and your construction are going to take the longest time, right? And you want to get that location right, even if you're not in class A retail, even if there's a lot more inventory because there's a lot more options for you. You want to be in an area where you want to get the location right. Um, and then build out, it just depends on the space. It can be a very simple build out where you're doing painting, lighting, and flooring, or it could be something where maybe you have to bring the building up to code, right? So there's lots of variables there, which is why when I talk to candidates, I will say expect 9 to 12 months. What we are seeing now, and I'm talking about 30 new clinics in active development, right? We are seeing that that's inching more towards 6 to 8 months. The site selection is still going to be the longest piece of that. But then because we're going into that second generation professional medical office space, build out can sometimes be, a lot quicker, like maybe 60 days versus, a full month later. So we are seeing trends that are bringing that number down. I would always manage expectations, expect that 9 to 12 months time frame.
Okay. So let's say it's 9 months, right? Let's just put that for this scenario. I went through the research process. I've got a job. When am I quitting my job to go all
Mm.
in on running Medi?
Yeah. I would say probably, if not at system standards training, kind of depends when you do that, but let's say that's about 4 weeks out. Um, Probably 2 weeks out from when you actually are open.
Oh, so I thought you were going to say like 3 months before, but
No,
it's like 2
no,
to 4 weeks.
yeah, yeah, like a month out or so. The reason for that is like some of the things that they're going to be doing is you're going to be doing the site selection, which that can be, done on the weekends after hours. If they're hiring their team, you can, schedule Zoom calls on lunch hours and meet on the weekends, things like that. There's ways that you can be more flexible with your time. 3 months before you open, we're going to turn on digital marketing, 60 to 90 days before you open. So someone does need to be online to start. I mean, that means your lead lists, your leads are warm, right? Or people can actually start raising their hand and filling out lead intake forms. So you do need to be online for that. But if you're in a role where, you can take a call or you can call someone back, or shoot a text, something like that, like you can work with that through. Um, System standards training, that's if someone's still in their job, that's PTO, right? That's a full week of out of office. I'm focused on Medi. And then as you get closer, just things are going to happen with construction and things like that, setting up the clinic, furniture, all those things. There's a big push towards the end to get the clinic up and running. And then from opening week, especially if someone's going to be that clinic operations manager, they're in the store for the hours of operation, which let's say it's, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on, 3 days a week, and then maybe 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. the other days a week. They need to be there in the store. And then around those hours, they're going to doctors, they're doing doctor's visits, they're doing Chamber of Commerce meetings, things like that. So they'll be hands-on from that point forward.
Cool. Okay. Um, all right. And then I think this is a good segue, right? Talking about construction of
Yeah.
Rep'em, right? So how did
Yeah.
Rep'em and Medi come to work together? And what is Rep'em and what do they do?
Yeah, for sure. So Rep'em is so we are I'll just say what the term is. We're an outsourced franchise sales organization, an FSO. So what we do is we represent different brands in multiple different industries. What we look for three things in the brands that we work with, and we vet many, many, many different brands. I think we've got about 16 different brands in our inventory, so that number is quite small. What we look for, though, is we look for strong leadership. You want seasoned integrity professionals, right? People with high integrity, and that have done this before. We also want to see proof of concept. So this isn't, someone had an amazing one and done corporate store. We want to see that this has been done a few times, whether that's corporate stores or maybe they started doing franchising on their own and they realized they need a little bit more help with that. But we're looking for proof of concept. Will this validate? And then we also look for strong unit economics, which we'll probably talk about at some point as well. But, it translates to the item 19 and again to validation. Are people happy and growing and, seeing revenue? So that's kind of our baseline. And there's a lot more work that goes into that. From there, when we decide to work with a brand, there's 4 ways that we support a franchise brand. So we've got different divisions. I'm part of the Grow division, which is the sales component. So we work on new franchise expansion across the country. And so I work with individual candidates. We also have a Brandum division, so we can help with marketing and content and collateral, more from a franchise expansion, like a franchise development perspective than like franchisee support. But that's very helpful as well. We have a Build'em division, which is really an outsourced project management service. Medi actually doesn't need that because they are so established. They're on the other side. They're not really emerging. They've got that
Oh,
infrastructure in place. But we do have that for most of our brands do look for and really appreciate that Build'em support. Um, and then the last way is scale them, and they are more the operational leg. So they help with building out FDDs and more the compliance side, the legal side of things. And I say that's our secret sauce as well as our VP of Ops over there. So that's where we really fit in. And when we started working with Medi, it was a pretty good fit on both sides.
very
So
cool. Very cool. And how many locations are open for Medi right now?
128.
Are
Well,
open, and then another 30 are in development, or
yeah.
wow.
Correct.
Yeah,
Actually, so 138 are open, 128 are franchise locations, 10 of those are corporate locations. And then, yeah, there's about 30 in active development.
very cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Alrighty. So then let's go into the numbers, right? If you talk startup,
yeah,
and I imagine it's different if I was a owner operator versus a executive, right? So we kind of talk about the differences there, and then get into the item 19 numbers.
yeah. So startup expenses, what you'll see in the item 7 is the low end is about 250,000 and the high end is about 495. So right below 500,000. So I would say average someone might expect is, in that 350, 400 range. What was the other part of your question?
Yeah, if
Oh,
I'm, that's if I was the operations manager in the
right.
in the clinic, right? So if I, I've owned businesses before, whatever, right? I want to do this
Yeah.
where I'm not in it day to day. How much extra am I bringing to the table?
Yeah. So I would say like your startup, really at that point, you're hiring that salaried clinic operations manager. So you would want to factor in, when we think about payroll, you would be factoring in their payroll, their base plus, probably some kind of a bonus and incentive structure. But the startup side of things isn't really going to change much outside of that. So what I would say is someone would want to factor in working capital. You want probably more working capital for that first 3 to 6 months or more, maybe more like 6 to 8 months or so, where you're factoring in that salary as well, versus maybe you're taking some of that, absorbing some of that cost, for your ramp up. But the startup side of it, you're still looking at, that franchise fee to lock in the territory. You're still paying that, whatever the build out and construction cost is, whatever insurance is needed, your first, security deposits to execute your lease. All those things are going to look the same regardless of if someone is an executive owner or not. So that doesn't change. I would just say it's really the operating expenses that someone is gonna want to take that into account, and we provide tools for someone to calculate that pretty specifically.
Okay, very cool. And then I'm also gonna, people who work with me, I have models myself. I have
Yeah.
videos of how to use them properly,
Okay.
how to read the different items. And then I
Great.
work with a large kind of fractional CFO accounting group that
Nice.
who will also look through those. And if you end up buying a franchise from me, I'll reimburse those professional fees because I think
Okay.
it's important to have professionals
Yeah.
look through your documents. So,
Love
um,
it.
if someone's worried about, you know, getting a big enough loan or they don't want it to be too big, right? I help solve that issue.
Love it.
Um, okay. All right. And then so that's the startup cost. Let's move into, so for those who don't know, it's we're recording this December of 2025. So this is from the 2025 FDD. These are numbers that are in there. We can't give anything else. So, call me and ask me to, for more in detail. You'll have to talk to the franchisees to get that. So that's the disclaimer. So Mary, what do we got
Thank
going
you.
on in the item 19?
Thank you very much. There's actually quite a lot in our item 19, which makes my job easier and also gives people a very good starting point. So we actually break up our item 19 into two different sections. And the first section is going to split up our top, middle, bottom, and average of our reporting franchisees. And so what you'll see in our top section is that our gross average sales per clinic in that top tier is about 1.64 million per clinic. Our highest grossing clinic did around 2.9 million in gross
Oh,
sales last year. What we're seeing is that bringing that down to the bottom line, people are bringing about 460,000 to net profit, which is about 28% margins. Now, what that includes, right? So people are always like, what are other expenses? What has come out before that number is COGS, payroll, rent, marketing, and royalties. So it would come out after that number are taxes, loan payments, if you've got any, debt, if you're financing this, professional fees, like you mentioned, and then discretionary business expenses at some point. So that's on the top tier. Average of our clinics are averaging right below 1 million in gross sales, bringing about 260,000 to the bottom line, which is overall about 23% gross margins.
okay.
So that's the first section. And then the second section, we won't get into it because it's like a lot of data, but just so someone knows, we also give the volume for the 3 KPIs I mentioned that drive success, which is patient acquisition, customer retention, and product revenue, and then overall gross sales. And we share the volume of those KPIs per clinic from the time that someone's open. So you can see how clinics ramp up over time. So there's a lot of good data that someone can pull out of there.
Yeah, the ramp
And then,
up
of
is
course,
huge.
we're going to supplement that during validation. But
Yeah. Okay. And then is this mostly paid via insurance or cash?
it's both. So our
Okay.
breakdown right now is actually about 30% of revenue would come from insurance, and then 70% will come from some form of self-pay. Now, some form of self-pay might be a copay, co-insurance, co-deductible that might be paying directly out of pocket. And what we're also seeing is HSA and FSA. Our products are more and more HSA and FSA eligible as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Great. So I think, those are numbers that hopefully get people excited, right? That's something, like you said, you have that couple in Georgia that has 3. So,
Yeah.
a lot of people I speak with, they're not looking for one franchise, right? They want to do this because they want to be, they want to be wealthy. And one franchise is great, but it's not going to cut it for these guys' dream. So how do you scale with a business like
Yeah.
this?
I love this question. This is a very scalable business, and I can back into that because I'm sure everyone says that. Just to give you to zoom out, when I say that, the roadmap is there. Our largest franchisee has 10 clinics in 2 states, and he actually just signed for 2 more clinics. And then we've got the gamut. I would say 60% of our owners are multi-unit. Probably that sweet spot is around 2 to 3, is where a lot of folks land. But we have folks that are, everywhere from 2 to almost 12, right? Coming out of the gate. So that roadmap is absolutely there. Now, how does it scale? If you think about in one individual clinic, okay, so we'll talk about that and then keep going from there. In an individual clinic, picture, you've got just like a typical dental office. You've got the waiting room, reception, you've got the hallway with, let's say, 6 doors on both sides. So maybe you've got an exam room, and then let's say you've got 5 consult rooms. Okay. Day one, you're not filling all of those rooms, nor are you paying payroll for 5 rooms, right? So you're going to start with 2 part-time hourly nurse practitioners and 2 part-time medical assistants. And maybe you have 3 people in the clinic to start with. Or you've got 1 NP, 1 MA, and then you as the clinic operations manager or your hired, ops manager. As the business scales, you're going to start layering in additional nurse practitioners to handle that additional volume. And so at some point, someone will have, let's say, 5 nurse practitioners in each of those 5 rooms,
Oh.
seeing 4 patients an hour for, let's say, 6 hours a day, 4 days a week to start with. And then they scale from there. So then maybe they expand to 7 hours a day to, from 4 days a week to 5 days a week to 6 days a week. There's so many ways that someone can expand within a single clinic. And then you're just going to keep going from there. And as someone continues scaling from clinic to clinic, now you can also, maybe you're hiring a clinic operations manager to manage one of those stores while you manage the other. Maybe you're hiring someone who's going to be able to oversee both. Right. So there's lots of different ways that people will scale out of that individual clinic. And part of it is preference. Some love to be in it, but they want someone to manage the other clinic as well. So there's lots of different ways that people will do that, but you'll start hiring around yourself as well. And when you think about how the business compounds, right? So how do you get all those patients? It's if, let's say, you're converting 30 new patients a month, which is actually not that many. Think of that as that's 1 patient a day that you have to convert, right? 1 patient a day. 30 new patients in month 1 equals 120 acute weekly visits in month 2, because those patients are coming in on a weekly basis. And then you do that again. In month 2, you convert another 30 new patients. Now in month 3, you have 240 acute weekly visits because each of those patients is coming in on a weekly basis as well. So the business starts to compound on itself pretty quickly. And then you tie in the experience, the empathy, optimizing all the other products and service that you have. There are so many ways that a franchisee is able to optimize the operations within that single clinic. And then if their goal is to keep going from there, there's a roadmap for that too.
So I come in as a patient. Am I signing up off the bat for 3 months or whatever it is,
You
and I pay it
can
up front,
now.
or am I paying
Yeah.
weekly? Like,
Yeah, so we actually just rolled out a self-pay membership model where people are doing that. They're signing up for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Historically, and I would say up until this year, people have been paying on a weekly basis.
oh,
So,
okay,
but that's rapidly changing. I mean, the membership model has had a massive adoption rate on both the patient side and with our franchisees. It's been a win-win for everyone. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, it probably works better, right? Because it's like,
oh, yes.
if I'm like, it's hard to lose weight and you'll lose
Yes.
motivation. But if like I paid for 9 months because
Oh,
that's how
yes.
long it takes to hit my goal, it's
Yes.
like I'm gonna show up next week.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. It's helped on both sides. It's helped from a franchisee, like a business owner side, right? Because you're getting that money up front, and then you're not paying someone, you're not charging someone's card every time they walk in. So what we're also finding
yeah,
is that people are more adept to, or more apt to pay for some of the ancillary services as well, because mentally, they're not paying for everything all at once, right? They're not seeing everything. So there's been I've only heard positive things about the self-pay membership model. So,
cool, nice, okay. So can you tell us a little bit about um the future, right? So like, what are the goals coming up for Medi Weight Loss?
ugh, great question. So our mission statement is helping people achieve wellness through weight loss. That is our mission. And so where our lane is always going to be weight loss, right? It's been weight loss for 20 years. Um, the wellness component of it is where we're headed. So if you look in our FDD, we've trademarked Medi Wellness, right? So we're not just talking about it. There's things that are already in motion for that. And then when you think about the products that we have started rolling out over the last 4 years and that will continue to roll out, we're leaning more into the wellness side of things. So if you think about, like, right now we're rolling out hormone replacement therapy,
Hmm.
HRT. That makes a lot of sense, again, from business sense and from a patient perspective. From a patient perspective, someone who's on a weight loss program and they also are on HRT are going to lose 34% more weight. Makes a lot of sense.
Oh, wow.
From a business perspective, you're able to leverage the same payroll, right? You're using the nurse provider. The time in the clinic is the same. It's an injection, so you're not having any additional equipment. You don't need additional overhead outside of the inventory, which you're going to order as needed. So there's lots of ways where you're going to be able to, again, maximize that operational efficiency. And then when you talk about how long a clinic has, or a patient stays with the clinic, the weight loss program, if we're doing our jobs right, someone's tapering off of that weight loss program, right? It might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but someone is going to come off of that program. If someone is on an HRT, what we're finding is that by choice, right? We're not telling them they have to be, but because they feel so good, people stay on hormone replacement therapy for life. And so now you've just created a patient who's coming to you not just for weight loss, but for their other wellness offering, other wellness needs. And so that's really the lens that we're going to keep looking through. Do I ever think we're going to get to infrared saunas and float tanks and things like that? I'll let the brand speak to that, but I would say that's not necessarily the weight loss journey, nor or weight loss lane, right?
Yeah.
And there's also from the business side, that's additional overhead you have to think about. That's another room in the clinic that's going to be taken up for that. So they're looking at a lot of things. They're looking at a lot of angles, but Medi Wellness is absolutely where they're headed. And another part of that is we just hired a chief medical officer that again speaks to that is where the brand is headed. And she's board certified as an endocrinologist. She came over from Life Force. And so really was in that kind of functional health preventative care side of things already. And so it makes she was with folks that they've rolled out HRT in other capacities too. So she has that experience of where we're wanting to go. So all of that bodes well for future franchisees as well.
Yeah, I bet. It's such
Yeah.
a big it's a big industry, right? And it's like people are willing to pay to feel good, you know? Um, and and I think also like as people live longer, right? It's like, okay, maybe I want to because obesity leads to a number of other problems, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, maybe I need to take care of this and I need to stay on top of it because if I'm not gonna die when I'm 70, I'm not gonna die when I'm 90, right? That's 20 extra years where I want to feel good.
Yes.
So it makes sense. A lot of tailwinds for this industry, I
There's
think.
so much. And this is something like when someone sees that, right? And you can see the booming industry and all of those things. Yes, from a business perspective, that bodes well, right? For someone that's wanting impact, someone is going to want to make impact. Like we just celebrated that we helped 435,000 patients lose a collective 10 million pounds. That is a real number. That number of pounds lost is tracked in real time every single day in every clinic. So, like, if someone comes in and they gained 3 pounds, that number goes up or goes down. If they lose 3 pounds, that number changes. So, that is a real number. And there are specific stats around the impact of what that means. The one that came most to mind to me was 25,000, what you're talking about, life years were added to someone's, like it's not just about health span anymore. It's or not just lifespan, it's health span is the new term there, where like you're talking about that quality of life. People want to be strong and they want to, have time with their grandkids. They want all those things well into their 80s and 90s. That's something this is playing a very, very real role in. We've had people who have, came to us, suffered comorbidities from an obesity or from being overweight. They were on multiple, like sometimes like a dozen different medications, and we got them down to one.
Wow.
Right? We have people who were scheduled for gastric bypass surgeries, and their doctor said, before we can do this surgery, I need you to lose 40 pounds. And when they went in for their checkup or their follow-up, the doctor said, just keep doing what you're doing. You don't need surgery anymore. Like those are very, very real stories. And when you talk, like I talk about the Delta executive, right? He said, do not underestimate the impact that this business will do. He's like, I love business. I love operating businesses. I love this component of it, but every single day you will have a story that just blows you away of like of how we've been able to help people. People have come in after cancer, people have come in during cancer, like all different types of stories. And my favorite question to ask franchisees is, tell me your favorite success story with a patient, and like their eyes just light up and they know, like, let me tell you about Elmer. Let me tell you, like, he was in a wheelchair. He never smiled when he came in. He was 200 pounds overweight. He didn't think he'd be able to spend time with his grandkids. And now he's standing on his own. He's get like, they know everything about these patients. And that is something that is, I think, underestimated. But for someone that wants to make that impact, this is a business that does that 100%, and more so even than like where the industry is headed. You know, it is headed that way, but we're playing a very real role in that for people.
Yeah, yeah, just like, um, I don't know how you measure it, right? But just like you said, just happiness, right? Like, when you can play with your kids, your grandkids, when you can play golf, instead of having to sit on the couch, you just wake up
Yeah,
and you feel better. Like, I can run faster after losing, like I said,
yeah,
like 15 pounds.
yeah.
It just feels
Amazing.
better. So,
Mm,
cool. All right.
okay,
Well, Mary, this was super informative.
good.
I think it's a really interesting, very exciting franchise. Um, One thing I didn't ask that actually, let me slip this in real quick.
Yep.
Um, Sometimes lending can be hard for these like license required businesses and stuff. Do you guys have any problems with franchisees getting lending?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not found that to be an issue. Like people, I will say on my end, I financing is very, very common. Of course, you know, people's strategy is going to look different from individual to individual. A lot of folks are doing SBA.
Okay.
SBA, they're doing the rollover. So I have not seen that impact
Okay.
folks too.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for being here. Once again, I'm Josh Emison with Tracer Franchising. If you want to learn more to find out if Medi is available in your territory, reach out to me. There'll be a link to the website, or you can just go to tracerfranchising.com. You can book time with me or submit a form. There's also, if you go to the resources page, there are more resources than you could possibly need, articles, courses, um, financial projection models, stuff to know if you're personally financially ready to do this. There's all sorts of stuff there. So check it out. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Mary, thanks again so much for being here. I'll let you sign off. If there's anything that you think people need to know, or about Medi or about franchising in general, I'll let you kind of take it home.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me on. This was I really, really enjoyed the conversation. And I would say there's no better time to be in franchising than right now. And there's no better time to be a Medi Weight Loss franchisee for so many reasons, a lot of what we talked about on the call today. But I would love to chat through any questions that you have, answer any questions that you have on the brand or how we can help with your goals specifically as well. So thanks again for having me.
Perfect. Thanks.